If we want to reap the harvest of peace and justice in the future, we will have to sow seeds of nonviolence in the present, Reichley Corrigan. Spurring from a series of tragic events in 1968, involving the murder of innocent Catholic and Protestant people, the Troubles, a 30-year conflict between Protestants and Catholics, Unionists and Republicans, English and Irish, flared in Northern Ireland. As violence broke out on the streets of Belfast and Derry, women created organizations and founded community in an effort to instill peace onto the violence-ridden streets. One of these organizations was Peace People, which was founded out of despair and created triumphant steps forward in establishing unity between those divided by the conflict. As the Peace People were marching for harmony, another organization, the Cumann na mBan, was inflicting tragedy. A third purveyor of violence was the Irish Republican Army, IRA, that planted bombs, carried machine guns, and wore ominous ski masks. Many IRA members were also female and gained reputations as being ruthless soldiers. This paradox of triumph and tragedy marked the beginning of a feminist nationalist movement, liberating women and fighting for the freedom of Ireland. Trouble for the Irish began centuries before, in 1649, when British General Oliver Cromwell moved throughout the countryside of Ireland, slaughtering Catholics and pillaging monasteries. During British rule, Parliament passed the Penal Laws, which criminalized Catholicism and the Irish language. Irish peasant farmers were forced into slave-like labor for British landlords, where a dependence on the potato crop was fostered. Then, in 1845, a blight poisoned potatoes nationally, causing disease, starvation, death, and emigration. Instead of offering aid to the Irish people, Britain forced shipments of goods out of Ireland and into England. During this 7-year-long tragedy, 2.5 million people died or emigrated. Up until 1914, all previous rebellions had been exclusively run by men and exclusionary towards women. It was a radical surprise when 100 women gathered in Wynn's Hotel in Dublin on April 2, 1914, to found Cumann na mBan League of Women, an organization geared towards rebellion. From April 24th to the 29th, 1916, the Irish Easter Rising took place in Dublin. There were over 100 female participants who were addressed in equality with the men. Although the uprising ended in surrender and tragic execution of the leaders, it was a triumphant advance in awakening Irish people to the Republican cause and the role of women in its quest for independence. In 1918, the Representation of the People Act was passed, guaranteeing Irish women the right to vote. Additionally, on December 6, 1921, the Republic of Ireland gained freedom under the Anglo-Irish Treaty. However, this act didn't extend to the 6 counties in Northern Ireland, which were still under British rule, tragically. 5 decades after the Rising, Bernadette Devlin, a Catholic woman, continued the fight of her grandmothers for peace and resolution. She was aware of the disparity between the rights of Catholics and Protestants, and, while at Queen's University in Belfast, she led marches in the name of nonviolence and civil rights. After being convinced by her community to run as a member of Parliament, Bernadette Devlin canvassed for votes around the North, promising Catholic equality, justice for the falsely imprisoned, and an end to British presence in Ireland. On April 21, 1969, Bernadette Devlin was elected to Parliament, having won 92% of the popular vote. At the time, she was the youngest woman ever elected at age 21. In her acceptance speech, she resounded,
"People of Mid-Ulster, we have finally started to overcome."
While Devlin's election to Parliament was a triumph for women and a hope for peace, violence still lacerated Northern Ireland. In August 1976, a young man was shot by British soldiers while driving, causing his car to swerve out of control, killing 3 children and critically injuring their mother, Anne Maguire. As a result of this violence, Anne's sister, Reichley Corrigan, organized a memorial march. 4 days after the tragedy, on August 14th, 10,000 women, both Protestant and Catholic, marched down Finnegy Road in Belfast. Thus, the Peace People was founded by Reichley Corrigan and Betty Williams, with principles for ending the cycles of tragic sectarian violence. The declaration stated, We want to build a peaceful society in which the tragedies we have known are a bad memory. However, Bernadette Devlin believed that the Peace People couldn't bring peace, for they are being used by the government, and they will be discarded as I was. Over the next 4 months, Peace People organized over 26 marches, attended mostly by women. While women of the Peace People sought triumph through unity and nonviolence, the Cumann created additional tragedy because of their focus on violence. Membership into the Cumann swelled in the turbulent atmosphere of the late 1960s in Northern Ireland.
The wave of imprisonment of the men affected then in the empowerment of the women, and women entered the political sphere.
In 1968, during the Cumann resurgence, the IRA allowed women to enlist, a triumph for feminism in the Republican movement. Yet this action created a disparity between the two organizations who fought for supreme power in the burgeoning movement. Additionally, women who left Cumann to join the IRA were shunned. In contrast, IRA members viewed the Cumann as an outdated organization. One member transferred to the IRA because, "I felt I wanted to be more of an activist." The IRA allowed room for activism. Women were spying, planting bombs, and carrying machine guns. In response, the media began to represent women as deadly and seductive femme fatales. During the tragic struggle, women turned from peacemakers and peacekeepers to harbingers of change through violence. In the different organizations, women put their bodies on the line, both in demonstrations of terrorism and harmony, disturbing long-standing gender stereotypes. As the Cumann upheld ideals of freedom for Ireland and, at times, conservative feminist ideologies, the IRA promised members action on the front lines of conflict. While both the IRA and Cumann were inflicting tragic violence on the streets of Belfast and Derry, the Peace People were founding peace on those same streets.
Their understanding of the Troubles, it's not about religion, it's about equal rights, economics, and political power.
In the face of fatal conflict, women triumphed with newfound confidence and the emergence of widespread feminist ideas, eschewing ancient patriarchal ideals in the household and the government. On November 30th, 1995, President Bill Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton visited Belfast, bringing global attention to the tragedies in Northern Ireland. After the visit, Hillary Clinton reflected, "There's been some important work done in recent years showing where women are involved is where the work of peace permeates. Down to the kitchen table, to the neighborhood, around cups of tea." This presidential visit set precedent for the involvement of the United States in helping pass the Belfast Good Friday Agreement on April 10, 1998, which created reconciliation between the Irish Republican Army and the Ulster Volunteer Force. The agreement established the Northern Ireland Assembly, which allowed Northern Ireland governmental independence from British Parliament. The Declaration of Support stated, "The tragedies of the past have left a deep and profoundly regrettable legacy of suffering. We must honor those who have died by dedicating ourselves to the achievement of protection for all." Bernadette Devlin stayed loyal to the Northern Irish cause, and long after her term in Parliament ended, she stood as an advocate for peace. In 1976, both Betty Williams and Mairead Corrigan were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their commitment to establishing peace in Northern Ireland. Even though the Good Friday Agreement was triumphant in reducing the violence, unrest prevails still in Northern Ireland. In Belfast, the ironically named Peace Wall separates Protestant and Catholic Belfast. In Northern Ireland, abortion is illegal, riveting many women to organize communities in an effort to overthrow this oppressive and inhumane law. Although the government, as well as the Catholic Church, still devalidates women, a so-called fourth wave of feminism has hit the North, and multi-generational women continue the fight for equality. Yet the tragedies in Northern Ireland are far from being healed. On April 18, 2019, Lyra McKee, a 29-year-old investigative journalist, was shot dead at a riot in Derry. Murder suspects are affiliated with a new IRA, which has emerged with ideals for a unified Ireland and violent means of procuring freedom. Furthermore, many of the female members of the IRA and Cumann remain unvindicated for the key roles they played. Even though incredible advances were made by women during the Troubles, Ireland and women are only seemingly free. Yesterday I dared to struggle, today I dare to win. Bernadette Devlin.